Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. So today we're joined by Scott and Tom from the Tesco Technology team, and they're going to be talking us through opportunities of Tesco Technology, and Tom can also talk about his personal experience transitioning from the military into his first civilian role. So hopefully everybody can see this GoToWebinar panel. Please do feel free to submit your questions throughout the webinar. I'll make sure that Scott and Tom get them either sort of throughout the slides or towards the end. So Tom, Scott, if you could please both introduce yourself, that would be great.
Okay, so as my slide is first, actually I'm the only slide with an introduction. My name's Tom Fail. I'm a SOC incident manager in Tesco Technology, working in the security team, and I've recently left the RAF in February. So I joined Tesco about 7 months ago, and that's why I'm here to add the military slant to this chat. Scott, who are you?
So my name is Scott Dalton. I'm part of the Tesco Technology recruitment team. I look after all things product at the moment, so product managers through to head of products. And Tom has kindly helped out with this evening to give, as he mentioned, a more military-focused angle to the conversation.
Lovely, thank you. And I guess I should also introduce myself. I'm Esme Dixon, part of the employment team at the Officers Association. So I've been working with Tesco now for a few months, sort of helping to set up their military recruitment program and bring the opportunities to you guys. So tonight we'll be looking at who Tesco Technology are, why would you potentially want to work for them, the recruitment process and live job opportunities with them. And then, as Tom mentioned, he'll talk about his own experience and, hopefully help you guys to do the same. So, Scott, over to you.
Would you mind moving on to the next slide, Esme?
Yep, is that so? Can you see that? What is Tesco Technology?
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, so guys, if you can all just take a moment just to read through what we do as a business, and why potentially Tesco Technology is a good place to, what we say, a good place to get on, or a place to get on. Myself, I've been with Tesco for about 6 months or so, and the transition over from my previous job into Tesco was probably the smoothest that I've had in a recruitment career. Firstly, being the onboarding process, very, very simple from my point of view. The onboarding of
Did we just lose Scott?
Yes, I think he has just dropped out.
Okay, right. Well, I suppose I'll take over. So, Tesco Tech, and while the two of us are relatively new to the team, I can assure you that there's a lot of people who have been around at Tesco Technology for a lot longer than us. That's one of the reasons why I joined. But what is Tesco Technology? We've got it's a raft of things, to be honest. And when you look at modern retail as it is, it's heavily driven by technology. Everyone is battling to try and support their customer a little bit better. And to enable that, that's what Tesco Technology does. I work in the security team, so our focus is on making sure that we can maintain that service and protect our customers. But we've got a number of teams that work on products, specifically software that enables our process and our operations across Tesco PLC. And some of the more network and deeper technical side of things, we have a lot of data science teams. We have some innovation teams, and we also have some basic software development teams. And further on to that is we look at the making the internal process within Tesco, across Tesco PLC, with all of the wider ranging parts of Tesco, which I'll explain later. We try and make sure that that is as smooth as possible, enabled by technology, in order to make sure our customers and colleagues can get to be as efficient as possible. And that's when it comes to retail, that's where you make the better margins. And particularly, where's Tesco Technology based? We're based out of a building called Plus, which is in Welwyn Garden City, which is in Hertfordshire, about not too long outside of London. So and we also have some teams in the centre of London, which are more the software development teams, but I've not worked in that location yet. And part of you'll see the bottom point there where it says about we collaborate across teams. We are constantly dealing with every team across Tesco Technology and across the multinational side of Tesco PLC in order to make sure that we're all on the same line and going towards the same goal and trying to get everybody on board. I'm just going to try and message Scott to see if he can just call straight back in. Scott, he might be having some comms issues. 1 second, please. I suppose carry on with next. Oh, got him. Good.
Get you back in, Scott. Sorry for the tech issues, everyone. No.
I suppose to keep things moving, we'll get Scott to call back in, but do you want to go to the next slide?
Now,
oh, we got him in. This is fun.
can you guys hear me?
Yes, mate.
Yep, you're back in. Thank you.
Where was I up to?
So Tom has just covered who Tesco Technology are. So I guess, would you like to take over why Tesco Technology?
Yeah, for sure. So what I was saying before I was cut off there, Tesco Technology for me would pose a lot of different and probably difficult questions in terms of the data space. So whether that be protecting the data, utilizing it for colleagues and customers alike, what you'd have each day is a completely different problem on a scale that no other business can actually appreciate. Obviously, with Tesco's size and scope and the way it's spread across various different nations throughout Eastern Europe and the Far East as well. You deal with different cultural problems as well, which is quite varied depending on which team that you're in. But the Welwyn Garden City and Farringdon offices are two that are quite similar in terms of their functionality. The working spaces, especially in the Welwyn Garden City office, are made for collaborative working. It's an open plan office with many open meeting rooms that are all connected to the latest screening technology to other parts of the world and to the London office as well. So what it will give you is an opportunity to really experience not just the area that you're potentially working in, but to sample some other areas as well. So if you're working in data, you'd certainly have a lot of communication with the product team, with the analytical team and cybersecurity as well. So it's a very collaborative place to work.
Sorry, Scott, can I just interject with a question there? Is there also the opportunity for people to travel abroad if they were to work for Tesco Technology?
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
So I spent about a week ago, I spent 2 weeks in Thailand working with the team in Thailand there, and I've been out to Prague working with the Central European team. I suppose it depends on the role and how active you are going out. But in my 7 months, I've managed to go out and see the Central Europe team and Thailand team and dealing not just with incident response, but dealing with them to help make their lives a little bit easier. And I'll be going out to the Bengaluru team out in India pretty shortly to go and talk to them as well. So in 7 months, I've had the chance to be able to go out and visit all these teams. But Scott might be able to talk on any specific positions out in those locations if there are any.
I guess it depends which team you're working in. So I'll speak on behalf of product. If you're working within the online team, then we're making big strides within the Eastern Europe world there. So if you're in online product, the chances are you will have the opportunity to work out in Eastern Europe. If you're working within the data product teams, then there's definitely going to be scope for you to work out of Bengaluru and Thailand. And so it does depend. Tom's in a space where obviously cybersecurity is a big case of ours across all of the locations. So Tom's obviously had a great opportunity to visit all 3 sites as well as the Welling and London office. But I think in product and potentially software engineering as well, it would depend on which team that you're based into as to where you'd be asked to travel for various work reasons.
Thank you. Sorry, back to the slides. Scott, are you there just to sort of continue with that Tesco Technology slide?
Yeah, for why Tesco Tech. Yeah, so there's obviously we talk about here. So summarize, we talk about real world problems. So this is day-to-day stuff for hundreds of thousands of colleagues. Tesco as a whole employs 440,000 people worldwide, and customers alike into the tens of millions. So what we need and what we're after in technology is a range of people from different backgrounds, whether that be the military, whether that be from commercial, whether that be from e-commerce, because all of our customers come from different backgrounds as well and have different needs and different problems. So what we'll do, we'll prioritize development within all of technology, offer extensive training courses for whichever area you're in: cybersecurity, product management, engineering, leadership. These are all on site as well and all covered by Tesco. So for myself, in the 6 months that I've been at Tesco, I've probably been on 4 or 5 different training courses. Obviously completely different to the technology side of things, but from a recruitment aspect and from a leadership aspect, they really do help you develop as a employee and as a person as well. They're not just work related ones. They'll help you in your day-to-day life. So what they want to do, they offer a great flexible work-life balance as well. So what they have are core hours of 10 till 4. So they expect you to be in the office for that. But we have an 8-hour day. So you could work from 8 till 4 or from 10 till 6 or 9 till 5. And that just helps with, I'm sure Tom is a strong advocate of this as well, with having a young family. It offers the flexibility to be able to spend time with children or loved ones in the evening or the morning, whichever was preference, or if you had a late doctor's appointment, early dentist appointment. It just lets you manage that time a lot easier. You're trusted in your role. We hire people on what they bring to the business, not for them to be there from 9 till 5 every day and have that set tone. We trust the people to do the job that they're brought on to do, and that trust is rewarded by Tesco employees giving 110% each day and making sure the job is done to the best of their ability. So it's certainly a two-way street, but the flexibility in the working hours is something that's a big attraction for a lot of people. A relaxed dress code as well is always quite nice. I was quite bored of putting on a suit and tie for 5 or 6 years traveling into London for my previous role. So to be able to come in and have a bit more flexibility in what you wear is sometimes quite nice. On-site gym as well, something that I try and make the most of, probably not as much as I should, but definitely do. So it's a Nuffield Health gym. It's about £25 a month from your usual Nuffield prices, which are about 75. So certainly a nice perk to have. Great other benefits as well. So a discount card for Tesco at 10%, and after 6 months service, you'll be asked if you'd like another card to give to a family member who lives at the same address as you. So some smaller perks and some that really do make a difference. For me, one of the big draws about Tesco and not just technology as a whole, but Tesco in general is how much they do for the outside community. So I think everyone probably listening in now has visited a Tesco probably in the last year, and you'll see when you go into the shop how much they do for the outside community. So the race for life, the walks for life, the causes that they try and help out as much as possible are endless. So especially in the local community, they'll offer grants for grassroots football. They'll help the aged. They'll do a lot for Cancer Research UK, and that for me was something that was quite a big attraction for a company that takes that as seriously as they do and put as much money and time and effort into it as they do. I think it's quite nice for an organisation of that size to be that invested in the local and wider community. but as the bottom remark says here, it is the people. Like I say, there's a real family type environment that you'll be hopefully exposed to once you come on board, and they do as much as they can to help you settle in and to transition over and to offer the training opportunities. So you never feel like you're on your own. If there's a question, everyone's very, very forthcoming and helpful in their answers. So it's overall for me, best employer that I've had in my recruitment and professional career over the last 10 to 12 years by far.
I can just sort of echo those some of the points that Scott has talked about and relate them a bit back to the military. So we're talking about solving real world problems. A lot of you will experience dealing with issues that you weren't expecting to come up with, and we deal with those quite a lot because of the size of the organization and the challenges that we experience across the international and our subsidiaries as well. And when you talk about flexible working, I can specifically talk about that when we do incident management, for example, or when there's like a hard push to get some product out. When dealing with a significant incident that we had, we're working some pretty long hours, but our team, my management, were pretty flexible and returning those hours back to us. And it was an incident, so we're working quite late into the night, and food was put on for us and that sort of thing. And the hard work you put in is rewarded and paid back to you, and you're given that flexibility to maintain some work-life balance, because as you will have experienced in the military, there's sometimes when you need to work a little bit harder than normal, and then there's sometimes when there's a bit of slack, and that's understood within Tesco Technology and given back to you.
Great, thanks. We've just had a question come in. Scott, you sort of touched on the training courses and the training opportunities available. Upon leaving the military, you sort of get some money towards training courses or qualifications. And we've got someone wondering, is there anything that you would recommend sort of having or doing before you sort of apply or before you start a role with Tesco Technology? Any particular project management qualifications, or people with a tech background? Do you have any recommendations?
So Tesco work in an agile way as much as they can. For the size of the organisation is quite difficult. So anything around agile, Scrum, Kanban would be certainly helpful. We don't work specifically with project management. We have program managers and product managers, so somewhere in between. So anything around any qualifications or distinctions that they can do in either program or product management would certainly stand out on a CV. So anything around Prince 2 or anything like that would be really helpful.
Are these essential, so for sort of the CV criteria, or just desirable, do you think?
I would say just desirable, not essential by any means, but anything to help the CV stand out from others is always going to be a step in the right direction. But if those qualifications aren't there, it's not the be all and end all by any means. We look at people rather than CVs and qualifications. So if you've got what it takes to be a benefit to Tesco and vice versa, then we'd love to hear from you still.
From a techie point of view, technical qualifications and certifications, and I suppose you guys are dealing with the CTP and some resettlement money as well. It depends. It's worth talking to, getting in touch with Scott and finding out what specific jobs you'd like to look for, and then he can send out those CVs so you could perhaps tailor some of the qualifications you're looking at. But just to echo, a certification isn't everything. It's important to what you can do, not what a necessarily piece of paper says. It does point out that a certification does point out that you've managed to achieve a certain standard, and things like MSP for managing successful programs are probably pretty helpful for understanding that language. But when it comes to the technical programming, data science, and from security point of view, certificates aren't exactly everything, but they do help.
Yeah, for sure.
Great, thank you. I think that lends us nicely then to the next slide. Scott, if you could talk us through the recruitment process from your recruitment perspective, and then Tom, maybe if we could hear sort of your experience of applying for a role and being interviewed and actually securing the role, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure, no problem. So each area of Tesco Technology would have a slightly different variation of what I'm just about to go through, but generally it would be quite similar to this. So The Tesco specific way of recruiting is there would be a screening call with whoever looks after that particular area. So if it was with product, it would be with myself. So we're split between software engineering, data science, cybersecurity, online infrastructure. So we have at least one dedicated person who looks after that specific area. So once you make an application through the careers website, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail later, the recruitment process there is quite simple. Once you make that application, it will come through to that specific recruiter who will give you a call. Not an interview by any means. It's just a very short 10-15 minute screening call just to make sure the role is right for you and vice versa. If that all goes well and there's definitely a match to be made, then a screening call with the hiring manager would take place. So whoever's looking after that particular role, you'd have probably a half an hour more in-depth technical type of phone call with the hiring manager to go over the basics of the role, to understand what would be required to succeed in that role, and just to make sure that everything on your end is collaborated and you know exactly what the role is. If that call goes successfully, then you would be invited into an on-site interview at the Tesco head office, whether that be in Farringdon or in Welwyn Garden City. And that's generally a 4-stage, half-day, 4-hour interview. So you'd have 4 different assessors who would go over 4 different areas, obviously for different areas of technology. So for example, product, you would have leadership would be one area, design, research and analytics, business impact and value. And each assessor would give you an hour and go over some technical aspects of that. And one of the strong things about technology and Tesco in general and how they recruit is that we have an interview wash up straight after that loop. So once you finish the final hour of your interview, your recruiter will catch up with you for 10-15 minutes, see how everything went. If you've got any feedback that you'd like to give, then that's the time to do it. And then we'd have an interview wash up, which would essentially be all of the assessors coming together plus the recruiter to discuss how things went and to make a decision on that day. So it's not like I've worked in various organizations where you wait a week or 10 days or sometimes up to 2 weeks to get interview feedback. We can let you know on that same day. So if your interview finishes at 4 in the afternoon, we'll have the wash up that day, and you'll know by, I'd say, 5 o'clock what the next steps are, whether there's an offer or anything we can do to help improve for next time. But just some general CV tips for Tesco and recruitment in general, whether you go on to apply for Tesco or for anyone else. I would say keep the CV 2 to 3 pages long. Anything over that becomes a bit wordy and not that relevant. Anything from 10 years, maybe 12, depending on experience, I wouldn't say is that needed either. I would say at the bottom of the CV, I'd say additional experience at request. The same with your references. It just keeps the CV nice and short and the last 10 to 15 years really relevant and what we'd be looking for. And another thing around the layout of the CV, I'd say keep it as simple as possible. We want to make the CVs as easy for the hiring managers to read as possible. You want to make yours not one that looks too deep, too cluttered with different fonts and different typo, different sizes of font. Keep it as simple as possible and make it as easy for the recruiter and for the hiring manager to read. So yeah, any specific questions around the process or any CV tips that you have, please put it into to Esme to read out, and I'll be happy to go through that.
Great, thank you. Just a question from the last slide, actually, that we didn't get to touch on. You talked about the in-house courses that you could do. Are these externally accredited?
Some are and some aren't. I know that's quite a vague answer, but it does depend on the course. So we will offer Prince 2, which is obviously externally accredited, but we will have courses on Excel, or advanced Excel, or entry-level SQL, and these would just be internally accredited. But it does entirely depend on the course, and if you have any that you'd like to double check with me on a specific basis, please do. But yeah, I know it's a vague answer, but there's so many courses, it would be difficult to go through all and let you know which ones would be.
From the security point of view, for our security team, yeah, we have some externally accredited certifications. mainly that we go through, because it's kind of tricky, as the military know, to get some in-house training going. So I'm on some SANS courses at the moment, and some of my other colleagues are doing similarly international recognized certifications.
Thank you. So Tom, if you could just spend a couple of minutes talking about your experience of the recruitment process. Sort of, I mean, a 4-hour interview seems quite intense, especially for people, you know, this might be their first interview. Have you got any top tips, or, as I say, how did you find it yourself?
I suppose for the officer cadre, it might not be that intense, because I think OASC at Cranwell was 4 days. So for the audience, I'm guessing it won't be too bad, but it's probably been a while since they've had to do an interview, and that for me it was a bit daunting. From my experience of the whole story, to be honest, I hadn't heard of Tesco Technology before. That's not great, and we're trying to improve our brand recognition out there. But I'd been to a recruiting fair and seen Tesco Technology, and I thought, what's going on here? So I talked to the recruiter that was there at the time, and got a phone number and started talking to them about what jobs were available and what I was interested in. So similarly, you could talk to Scott or one of his colleagues in the recruiting team to find out exactly what jobs are there and where you might fit best. Following that, I then had a quick discussion with one of the hiring managers after passing my CV through to them. And you know, as the CTP recommend, tailoring your CV to the job you're after. That's what I did. So I talked to one of the hiring managers who's actually ex-RAF as well. That didn't hurt. But I then, following that, I was then, it was essentially a mini phone interview where I talked to them for about an hour, and they asked some leadership, some CV background questions, and then some more technical questions. And as I was successful on that, they invited me in for the 4-hour interview, and it's in 3 parts, which for me, for the security team, where they looked at CV background, talked about what I'd been up to, asking some more questions, getting some more depth on some of the points I'd put up on my CV. And then the next part was the technical, where about an hour and a half, we went through some more technical questions and did some more hands-on stuff that may change depending on the job you're going for. But if it's a more technical job, I would expect you should expect to do some more hands-on stuff and demonstrating what you can do, or that you have a loose understanding of how it should be working and showing some critical thinking around that. And then there was the leadership interview, which was my work level 4, who did that. And I can explain the work levels in a bit and how that relates to officer ranks. But work level 4 is there's a structured Tesco leadership question set that they go through. And that's to identify where your strengths and weaknesses are in leadership and where you can demonstrate what you have done on leadership. As we're talking to the officer cadre here, you should have plenty of resources to pull on for those questions, so it shouldn't be terribly difficult. But it's something to prepare yourself for leadership questions, you know, where you face challenges and things like that. So I went through that. I don't think any interview is easy, but it was a good experience for me, and that helped me want to do the job even more, if that makes sense. And then I heard back pretty quickly. I was actually in New Zealand at the time, that I called them back and said I'd like to take the job. But it was a enjoyable experience. It wasn't, you know, 4 hours does sound daunting, but to be honest, we've probably all been in meetings that have gone for 4 hours. So it wasn't too bad, and the way the team splits it up and gets you, you know, a cup of tea and a bit of a break, it's pretty relaxed environment. So I wouldn't say it's too daunting, but it's worth preparing yourself for and understanding as much as you can about it beforehand before you go in, like with any sort of challenge you face. So if you do get to that point, talk to a recruiter and make sure that you understand the process fully and you're ready to go.
Lovely, thank you. So Scott, I mean, it's a huge period of growth for Tesco Technology at the moment, and you have, you know, masses of live roles. Could you just explain a bit more about the types of opportunities you think would be best suited to officers? And we've got 4 different areas up on the screen there, if you'd just like to expand on those.
Yeah, of course. So obviously dependent on experience from yourself and potentially rank as well. Background is obviously vitally important. So Tom coming in from the RAF and a security background, that was quite a natural course for him to take. In security, at the moment, as you'll probably see if you head onto the Tesco careers page after this call, we're looking for security engineering managers, systems engineer, on various levels. So as Tom said, he will go into the work levels in a bit more detail, but we generally work on work level 2, work level 3, and work level 4, and I'll let Tom go into how that would equate onto the military side. If you have more of a software engineering or data science or data background, we're looking for data science managers, digital analytics managers, STPMs, which is a software technical project program manager. So the program management would be very similar to a project manager, and an LTM, so that'd be a lead technical program manager as well. So I think best for anyone who's interested in those areas to probably head to the careers website and have a look through the job specs. It'd be quite difficult again for me to go through all of the different roles that we have in those areas, and it's probably best to filter through which ones are right for you, and any questions leading on to that, I'll pass on my details on the end, and please feel free to get in touch afterwards.
And then
just to point out the rank structure, the sort of not rank structure, but the work levels. So loosely, and it all depends on the job, which is probably an annoying thing to hear, but so the work levels are kind of like the OF levels. So work level 2 is what I am. It's sort of flight lieutenant captain side of things. There is a merge. So OF 3, major squadron leader, lieutenant commander. That's probably a work level 3 style role. And then the work level 4s they're often in charge of significant teams, and that's where you're looking at the proper senior, quite experienced officers coming in there. And obviously, depending on the role, there's a certain level of technical understanding required. But as you are, you will have experience in project management naturally, and program management. You can do most of those jobs and turn your hand to most of them. But if you think of the work levels like OF levels, that'll probably help.
Great. And just thinking about those that don't sort of have the high level tech background, what sort of roles do you see those officers going into?
I would say the technical program managers, and I know this is not necessarily just for Tesco Technology, but Tesco itself has a significant logistics requirement, and a lot of stuff outside of Tesco Technology. It's not necessarily my wheelhouse, and Scott may know a recruiter in those wider areas of Tesco PLC. But if you're not necessarily interested in the deeper technical problems, or you're not necessarily a program manager, there are people with logistic backgrounds and some more operational backgrounds. I'm pretty sure across Tesco PLC we have a need for those as well. So it's worth getting in touch with Scott for something outside of Tesco Technology if that's of interest.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Brilliant. So please keep submitting your questions, everybody. I'm just writing a list, and I think we'll try and cover them at the end, because I know we've got quite a lot building up. But Tom, did you want to go into a bit more detail about your journey? Obviously, you've touched on it a bit, but as I say, just sharing a bit more detail would be good.
Sure, I love talking about myself. Okay, so I joined the RAF in 2008 after an illustrious career in Blockbuster. I joined as an engineering officer on the comms side of things. 10 years of doing that, moving around a number of bases and working on a number of communications challenges. Before I joined the RAF, I'd done a postgrad diploma in computer systems security, so I've always been interested in that. And in the later part of my career, I spent a bit more time working in crypto and cybersecurity exercises. I then left the RAF in February 2019, about a year sort of resettlement process, or just under a year. And I can understand the situation that quite a few of you are in from the CTP. Where do I go? and trying to figure out what courses are best to do to set you up for the future career. So I went through that. I'd focused myself on doing an information security career, and I did some of the CTP courses that are available there, Network Plus and Security Plus, just to put certificates to my experience. And then I so I did those certificates to help fluff out my CV with some of the experience that I'd been involved with cyber exercises in the UK and internationally as well. As I mentioned in the resettlement and recruitment process, that was relatively stress-free because, I mean, you're leaving, making a massive jump leaving the military. Well, it felt like it to me, leaving a place of security, job security that is, and then moving into the great unknown, to be honest. And the decisions were, looking at the big four consultancies, as there is often a common route for officers. However, I wanted to move across to something outside of London, just outside of London, which was quite, Tesco's is a pretty massive place, and the scope of the problems, and for me, the security challenge we have out there is really appealing to me. And the team that we're starting to build up in the security team is pretty exciting. We've got some ex-military and ex-policemen and people from all over the place, really. And that when Scott mentioned the team that we have, and the reason why people stay is because of the team, for me, that's definitely the case. And I mentioned about my recruitment experience and how relatively smooth that was. I made sure I was prepared for the role. I didn't just check in a generic CV. I made sure I understood what the role was I was going for, and made sure I understood the people I was going to be talking to, getting to LinkedIn and finding out a bit more about what Tesco is actually doing, and finding out what those people are interested in and what their experience is, and so you can talk to them a bit easier. The current role I'm in now, as I mentioned, is an incident manager for Tesco Technology security team, and that's, working with the Security Operations Center, the SOC team, the analysts, and dealing with any when we have an incident, trying to manage the team, and so use the leadership and management experience that I've got from my military background to help make sure the team is focused and we allocate resources appropriately. And it's not just the UK team. I'm talking to whatever team's being involved, whether it's our Asia Pacific colleagues, Central Europe colleagues, or even some of the our subsidiaries dealing with. We have Tesco Bank we talk to quite regularly. There's dunnhumby, which do well known for the data in the club card side of things. If you look at the Tesco website and look at about us, you'll see all the subsidiaries that we deal with, but there's a lot. And that's where being able to use my experience from the military and talking to people, I've never really met before, but helping them to get them on board, that's where my role sits. So I'm not deeply technical. I'm not the guy with the hands on the keyboard, but my understanding of what they can do and what resources they can bring to bear is what helped me get my job. Experiences so far, like I mentioned, I've been out to Prague to do some project management on the security side of things. I've also been out to Thailand for 2 weeks with work as well, and dealing with working with our colleagues, our international colleagues, is pretty exciting because it brings those challenges of different cultures and different problem sets that that are important to them. So it's pretty exciting, and it's like when we went out to Thailand, it was kind of a bit like deploying to solve a problem. We're out there to do our job, and that was pretty exciting. It's not obviously the same as deploying anywhere else. Keep in mind that I was RAF comms engineer, so I only really went to Camp Bastion, but it's the challenges that we face are often or are really operationally focused. That's what Tesco cares about, and making sure that our service makes our colleagues and our customers their life just a little bit better every day. So anything, and these are big problems to fix just to make someone's life a little bit better. So it's a challenging world, but it's a rewarding world. And the team that I work with, I'm very lucky to have around me, and I think that's down to the work that Scott and his team are doing of finding the right people. And I believe that there's military people out there that are leaving the service that can definitely make Tesco Technology even better. So that's why I'm involved in this.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on to questions now. We've had quite a few submitted. So I think some link into each other and hopefully answer some sort of slightly different worded questions. But Tom, Scott, just chip in as I say them. We've had quite a few people asking if there are other UK locations or whether it's only London and Welwyn Garden City.
In terms of the technology, it is just Welwyn Garden City and London. When we talk about fulfillment centres and distribution centres, then they're based all over the UK, but that is outside of technology. Everything that happens on a technical basis and from a head office basis is out of Welwyn Garden City and Farringdon.
Thank you. And are there any work experience opportunities or work shadowing opportunities for those currently in transition? What sort of the next steps after listening to the webinar?
In terms of work experience opportunities, so we do take on interns and people who come on secondments. That is something I'll have to look into and find out a bit more detail, but I know that there's just been a group of data science interns who've come on for a month or so, and after that month they then went through the interview process, so the screening call and the 4-stage loop, and I believe we took on 3 out of the 7 that had an internship, so just under 50% success rate in hire. So it's certainly a good way to go about it. And I'll try and dig out some more details about when we'll next be doing a round of that and in which area it will be specific to.
Thank you. I think the next question is aimed at you, Tom, but how did people accept your military background? Sort of your first civilian role, really? Were people quite receptive? Did people, I don't know, ask questions, or was it just as if you'd had any other job?
It wasn't like I had an extra air. It wasn't like I was necessarily a strange person, but there are some ex-military people at pretty much every job you go, but definitely in Tesco Technology, there's a couple of us potted around. I had to, make a couple of changes to the way I interact with people, because there's a military way of talking to people and there's a less military way of talking to people. But it wasn't really a massive change. People are interested in some of the things that I've been involved in, just in the way that I was interested in some of the things that they've been involved with. It's not, from my experience, it's not as massive a change as you might expect. But I mean, that depending on my team, I work in a team of about 20 people, specifically day to day on security. But it's not, people aren't necessarily scared of you as being a military person. They just expect you a bit more. You've got a bit better admin than most people, I think.
And another one for you, Tom, sort of the biggest challenges that you found working for a civilian organisation.
I don't call people sir and ma'am anymore, which is enjoyable, but I still have the respect for the hierarchy. And I think the biggest challenge is it's a bit easier to go and talk to my hierarchy about an issue. And also within Tesco Technology, if there's a problem I see, it's a bit of a quicker route to go and solve that in an engineering space than going through some of the hoops that I had experienced in previous jobs. So that it was also one of the harder things was actually buying clothes to go to work in, as opposed to just being given uniform.
Yeah. Okay. Scott, back to you, I think, for a couple of recruitment questions. And then we've got quite an interesting question for the last one. But firstly, should CVs be in chronological order or more skills or achievement focused? What's most popular within Tesco Tech?
I would say for your experience, chronological, so the most recent role that you've had, whether that's military, civilian, whichever, most recent role at the top. So I'd have a summary of your skills, certainly an overview of yourself, and then a summary of your skills, and then your first job going back, like I mentioned earlier, probably to the last 10 or 15 years and no further than that, and to keep it within 2 or 3 pages. So yeah, definitely chronological order, but I would have a synopsis of yourself, an overview of your personality, a summary of your skills, and then start with your first job and move on from there, or your latest job, sorry, and move on from there.
Thank you. And then on the interview side of things, obviously you mentioned sort of the different stages sort of the different interview styles, and what are the key skills that your recruiters are looking for?
Honesty. I know that sounds quite obvious, but honesty. And what they tend to want, especially within the more experienced personnel that they interview, are real life examples. I know that's quite difficult coming from a completely different sector, as most of you will be coming from. But what they want to hear about, so if we're talking about leadership, that they don't want textbook answers. They want to know how you've dealt with difficult stakeholders or different higher ranked personnel than yourself, rather than your textbook answers. So they want to see how you've done it, not how you would do it. So talk about as many real life examples as you can. That would probably be my number one tip.
Yeah, definitely second that. I've been involved in a couple of on the other side of the desk for interviews, and it's important that you can bring the examples of where you have made the difference, where you have dealt with change, where you have dealt with difficult people and demanding situations. I'm pretty sure as officers you will have had loads of experience of those, but it's worth writing those down and getting those answers sort of set up in your head before you come into the interview, so you don't have a bit of a flat spin.
Right. And are there any opportunities for part-time work? Obviously, there's masses of roles, but these tend to be full-time. What are the chances? You mentioned earlier about working from home a couple of days a week. What are the different options?
So each person, whether you're a recruiter or you're the CTO, will have the opportunity to work at least one day a week from home. Obviously work dependent. So as Tom mentioned in security, if there's a real big issue that they have to deal with, that will take precedence. But if it's a general working week, we always have one day from home as a minimum. In terms of part-time flexible opportunities, generally with technology, they are full-time, but we're open to hearing about potential changes in that. That's definitely something that I've taken to hiring managers before and said, this person's available only 4 days a week. Is there something that you can do to fit that into your team? And often there is. Often there's certainly a way that we can amend that fixed term contract or that permanent contract to make it a part-time flexible one. So yeah, don't be put off if you're only available 3 or 4 days a week. That's something we'll try and commit to helping with as much as we can.
And then last question for the evening. What does the next 5 years look like for Tesco Tech? Are there any key areas of growth or key areas to look out for? What do you think?
I can speak from a security point of view.
Yeah,
we're growing massively on security. It's a large estate, very complex estate, and we're trying to find the right people to provide that support. I know there's quite a few. We're looking to get some more permanent staff in to those jobs. Obviously, on the security side, it's a bit more of a technical. So if you've worked over in the West Country or Corsham, or your single service versions of that, or single service teams similar to that, we'd be pretty interested to talk to you. But that's from the security side. Scott could probably talk a bit better about everyone else, but security is growing massively, and I think data definitely is as well.
I would say something that Tom briefly touched on earlier when he said about leaving the military and potentially joining Tesco. He didn't know about Tesco Technology. So a lot of our marketing and social presence is being pushed at the moment about really enhancing the brand, Tesco Technology, people understanding that we're more than eggs, bread and milk. We are a technology hub. We have 700 people working in technology at the moment with 250 live vacancies. So if we're talking the next 5 years, I would expect all of those to be filled and for us to hit over 1,000 people in technology. This is just in the UK alone, bearing in mind we've got a huge presence out in India as well, and Thailand and Eastern Europe. So on site in the UK in the next 5 years, I'd expect Tesco Technology to have 1,000 permanent employees, and for Tesco Technology to be a household name when it comes to thinking about data and security and engineering. So that's a plan that we're putting into place with, like I mentioned, a lot of our marketing and social outlets.
Oh, exciting times ahead. Thank you both. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and obviously to Tom and Scott for sharing your insights. It's much appreciated. So next steps for those tuning in, as Scott said, head to the Tesco Technology vacancy site. Did you say there's over 250 roles, Scott, or just about?
Yeah, we've got 250 live vacancies in technology. That's split across all of the areas I mentioned earlier. So, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to get on, certainly. So it's tescocareers.com. And if you search for office roles, then you'll be able to search in any keyword. So if there's an area that you specifically want to work in, whether that be product, engineering, program management, data, securities, as Tom is now, type that into the keyword search and it'll bring up all the roles that are relevant to that area.
Thank you. And if there's anybody who wanted to specifically get in contact with Tom or Scott or anybody else in the Tesco Tech recruitment team, please do just let the OA know, and we can try and put you in contact. But thank you again to our speakers and to everyone tuning in. That's the end of tonight's webinar.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.